Introduction. Here is the next part of the master your emotions. Let's start the next part, that is what are emotions, what emotions are. Have you ever wondered why emotions are and what purpose they serve? Emotions क्या होते हैं और उनका purpose क्या होता है? In this section we will discuss how your survival mechanism affects your emotions, that you will explain that the ego is and how it impacts your emotions. Finally, we will discover that mechanism behind emotions and learn why negative emotions can be so hard to deal with. First, how your survival mechanism affects your emotions. Okay. Why people have a bias toward negativity. Your brain is designed for survival, which explains why you are able to read this book at this very important moment. When you think about it, the probability of you being born was extremely low. For this miracle to happen, all generations before you had to survive long enough to procreate. In their quest for survival and procreation, they must have faced death hundreds or perhaps thousands of times. Fortunately, unlike your ancestor, you are probably not facing death every day. In fact, in many parts of the world, life has never been safer. Yet your survival mechanism hasn't changed much. Your brain still scans your environment, looking for potential threats. In many ways, some part of your brain have become obsolete. While you may not be seconds away from being eaten by a predator, your brain still gives significantly more weight to negative events than to positive ones. Fear of rejection is one example of a bias toward negativity. In the past, being rejected from your tribe would reduce your chances to survival significantly. Therefore, you learn to look at any sign of rejection, and this became hardwired in your brain. Nowadays, being rejected often carries little or no consequences to your long-term survival. You could be hated by the entire world and still have a job, a roof, a plenty of food on the table, yet your brain is still programmed to perceive rejection as a threat to your survival. This is why rejection can be so painful. While you know most rejections are no big deal, you nevertheless feel the emotional pain. If you listen to your mind, you may even create a whole drama around it. You may believe you are not worthy of love and dwell on rejection for days or weeks. Worse still, you may become depressed as a result of this rejection. In fact, one single criticism can often outweigh hundreds of positive ones. That's why an author with 55-star reviews is likely to feel terrible when they receive a single one-star review. While the author understands that one-star review isn't a threat or to her survival, her authorial brain doesn't. It likely interprets the negativity and the negative review as a threat to her ego, which triggers an emotional reaction. The fear of rejection can also lead you to over-dramatize events. If your boss criticizes you at work, your brain may see the event as a threat. Now think, what if I'm fired? What if I can't find a job quickly enough and my wife leaves me? What about my kids? What if I can't see them again? While you are fortunate to have such an effective survival mechanism, it is also your responsibility to separate real threats from imaginary ones. If you don't, you will experience unnecessary pain and worry that will negatively impact the quality of your life. To overcome this bias towards negativity, you must program your mind one of human being greatest power in our ability is our ability to use our thoughts to shape our reality and interpret events in a more empowering way. This book will teach you how to do this. ठीक हो गया? Action step पे आ जाते हैं. Next is the action step. Complete the corresponding exercise in the workbook section 1. What emotions are and bias towards negative. Why your brain's job isn't to make you happy. Your brain's primary job is not to make you happy but to ensure your survival. Thus, if you want to be happy, you must take control of your emotions rather than hoping you will be happy because it's your natural state. In the following section, you will discuss what happiness is and how it works. How dopamine can mess with your happiness. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter which, among other factors, plays a major role in rewarding certain behavior. When dopamine is released into specific areas of your brain, the pleasure centers release into specific areas, you get the pleasure centers, you get a high. This is what happens during exercise, when you gamble, have a sex, or eat great food. One of the roles of dopamine is to ensure you look for food so you don't die of starvation, and you search for a mate so you can reproduce. Without dopamine, our species would likely be extinct by now. It's a pretty good thing, right? Well, yes and no. In today's world, this reward system is in many cases obsolete. While in the past, dopamine was linked to our survival instinct, the release of dopamine can now be generated artificially. The great example of this effect is social media, which use psychology to suck as much as time as possible out of your life. Have you noticed all these notifications that pop up constantly that used to trigger a release of dopamine so you can stay connected, and the longer you stay connected, the more money the services make. Watching pornography or gambling also leads to a release of dopamine which can make these activities highly addictive. Fortunately, we do not need to act each time our brain releases dopamine. For instance, we do not need to constantly check our Facebook new feeds just because it gives us a pleasure shot of dopamine. ये बड़ी मज़े की चीज़ें हैं ये dopamine वाला जो है ना topic. Today's society is selling a version of happiness that makes us unhappy. We become addicted to dopamine largely because of marketers who have found effective ways to exploit our brains. We receive multiple shots of dopamine throughout the day and we love it, but is that the same thing as happiness? Worse than that, dopamine can create real addictions with severe consequences on our health. Research conducted at Tulane University showed that when given permissions of self-stimulate their pleasure center, participants did it an average of 40 times per minute. They choose the stimulation of their pleasure center food over food, even refusing to eat when hungry. तो खुशी में उनको खाना पीना भी भूल गया. Korean Lee Seung-seop is an extreme case of this syndrome. Sorry, मेरी ना जुबान पकी हुई है थोड़ी सी ना, तो बोलने में थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है. In 2005, Mr. Seop died after playing a video game for 58 hours straight with very little food or water and no sleep. The subsequent investigations conclude that the cause of death was heart failure induced by exhaustion and dehydration. He was only 28 years old. To take control of your emotions, it is essential you understand the role dopamine plays and how it affects your happiness. Are you addicted to your phone? Are you glued to your TV? Or maybe you spend too much time playing video games. Most of us are addicted to something. For example, people, it's obvious but for others. It's more subtle. For instance, you could be addicted to thinking. To better control your emotions, it is important to shed the light on your addictions as they can rob you of your happiness. Next, we will do in the next video because my tongue is hurting right now. पकी हुई है थोड़ी सी, तो बोलने में थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है. तो नेक्स्ट वीडियो में मिलते हैं नेक्स्ट पार्ट के साथ. थैंक यू सो मच.